You're listening to the I Have Dreams Damn It podcast, a podcast about the realities of pursuing dreams. I'm your host, Lisa Murray, and let's go.
Live from Los Angeles, California, this is the Lisa Murray Show. And with your host, Lisa Murray.
The day I felt like I really started living.
I don't have enough money to start this business.
I'm so tired. I hate it. I'm working all the time.
I'm not inspired when I'm worried about money.
Life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all.
I'm so sick of all these positive people talking about dreams. What about money? Like, how am I supposed to get the money?
What it's really about, it's about you pursuing what makes you come alive. It's about continually connecting with that energy and just keep doing that. Keep going towards that. That's what it's about. I need to give up. There's too many obstacles. I can't take this shit anymore. Ships are safe in the harbor, but that's not what ships are built for.
It feels really good to be my own boss.
I have dreams, damn it!
Hey guys, this is my third or fourth time trying to record an intro, and there are all these weird things happening. Plus, I'm tired. Are you getting like foggy brain during this whole quarantine? It's so hard to figure out like what day is it, all that stuff. So then I just realized that the mic isolator thing that I have over the mic was facing the opposite way. Oh, it's fun being me. But I just want to tell you that today's guest is Julia Huffman. She's an award-winning filmmaker, teacher, and acting coach. I know her as my friend. She's also one of the subjects in my film Soul Providers, Los Angeles. You can actually see that film, as I mentioned before, but I've left it on my YouTube channel just during this quarantine to help creative people realize the importance of creativity during every part of life. And so even though right now it might feel kind of like, and you're like stifled, maybe channel some of that energy into being creative, into an art project. I feel your pain, we're all feeling it. And, it's like with the film festival, my Ag and Art Film Festival, I can't plan it. I don't know what I'm doing. There's just a lot. There was supposed to be like an ongoing, series of films that were going to happen leading up to it. That's not going to happen now. So yeah, it's hard. So just having to channel our creative energies into something else. So then we do feel in control of something, right? Right. I really think you're going to enjoy this talk with Julia. It's really kind of long because it was like an hour and 40 minutes. And I was like, oh my God, we've talked for so long. We still haven't even fully talked about all of her work that she's doing. But we did talk about Medicine of the Wolf, which is her award-winning documentary. And really, we just went right into like the meat of what we were both going through last year. And I actually did not know that she went through something similar to what I went through with that whole weird thing that I told you guys about. And then I had the revelation in December. Yeah. So she kind of went through a similar thing. And now I'm wondering maybe it's a Sagittarius thing. I don't know. But it was really helpful to hear another person, go through it. And you know what? As artists, we are going to go through stuff. We are going to go, and that's important. We should. And we should process it, and we should process it with our eyes and ears open so that we can bring that experience into our art. And maybe that'll help somebody else. Or maybe not help, but just touch or affect another person in a positive way. All right. Well, anyways, enjoy today's show and everything that we talked about. And also, Julia's given a TEDx talk. The link for that, the link for Medicine of the Wolf on Amazon Prime, the link to her website. She's an acting coach. All the links will be on the show notes page on IHaveDreamsDammit.com. It's episode 30, Julia Huffman. Enjoy.
I'm so happy that you're here. I'm so happy that I'm talking to you. And it's a total full circle for me from when I met you to all this shit that happened to me, and then you agreeing to be in my film Soul Providers, and then me living with all of your words through all the editing and through all the stuff that I went through and all those years after Derek and Michael died, and then you showing up to the screening in Los Angeles, and then now on my podcast a year later. I don't know if it's a year after this. No, it's not a year after the screening, but the podcast has been here a year. But I just want to say thank you and welcome so much to Julia Huffman. Woo!
Hi, Lisa.
I don't do that with anybody else. I don't know why I just did that.
Well, it's greatly appreciated as I sit in my little room with my sweats on and I don't have any human connection. It's nice to have that warm welcome. So thank you.
Yes, COVID-19, social distancing is real. Guess where I am? I am actually in my
Where?
car in a library parking lot borrowing their internet.
Wow, you are inventive, but yet I'm not surprised.
And
I think I know this about you. You can make it work where and how you need to.
yeah, and it's like hardly anyone, no one's really here in the parking lot. So I'm like by myself. I put some scarves up on the windows. It's like my own little vocal booth. It's awesome. I love
You
it.
know, we could do a podcast sometime on just a session on your car being your office.
Oh,
Anyway, I could go on and on about that personally because of all the different hats I've worn and since I've lived in LA. But
mm-hmm.
yeah,
Oh, my car is like growing up in Arizona, which is very similar to LA. Our cars are like our bodies almost. It's like
right.
everything. I go everywhere with my car, like my car. And so during this whole social distancing thing, I really love my car even more. I'm like, I really love my car. And I don't even have a great car. I just love it because it's my space.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I completely relate. All the different cars I've had in my lifetime, I've really developed an affection to my cars, and it's and really, it's like, we live in this huge city, right? But if you have that intention, it can kind of be your own little tranquil sanctuary, right?
Yeah, right. You
The
can
in
get
between
essential
time,
essential oil thing, put in your air
right?
conditioner stuff. It's like it's great. It's your
I've always
eco
kept
environment.
a couple changes of clothes in my car. I learned over the years, like, the car can have many different functions: office,
Yep.
changing room, you name
Like
it.
get centered pod.
Get centered,
Yep.
get centered podcast. Hmm. Yep.
Okay, so one of the things I love about you is that, you're successful in the top part of the world, like the physical manifestation part, but then you also are such a deep thinker and you really think about how everything is connected, which is how I think as well. And I don't know if you know this about me, but last year was actually a really horrible year for me. I mean, I know, like after Derek and Michael died, it was all horrible. But then
Yeah.
there was some healing and it was kind of like a tree growing back after being cut off. You know those trees when you see them cut all the way down and all of a sudden you see like this side branch that they didn't get to and that starts to grow and then pretty soon over a period of time it becomes really big and then you can't even see the part where the tree was cut down.
Yeah.
That's kinda like me. So, I
Yes.
felt good and everything, and then last year, for some reason, it was so personally challenging, and I think it hurt more because I felt like I had had it come back, like, "Okay, I'm back to life. I'm here
Hmm.
for a reason." And
Hmm.
then I felt like these personal things were happening, and then in business, there were, like, these weird interactions with people that left me
Hmm.
feeling really, really extremely shitty, like, really awful. And when I tell people, "Oh, last year was like one of the worst years of my life," people are like, "What? No, you started a podcast, you started a film festival, you had all these."
Hmm.
Yeah, that's right. That's what it looks like on the surface, but I'm telling you, it was personally one of the hardest years.
Yeah.
So then in December, I drove to Arizona to spend Christmas with my mom and my uncle, and that drive out there, back to the car, my drive out there and then being there alone and then coming back, I had this huge revelation that of what my fatal flaw is, something that I have always had in me that's set up to have this reoccurring problem. So even after all this death and rebirth of the deaths in my life and everything, I still had that thing in me that would create and manifest this disjointed reality that felt so off and I didn't know what it was, but it turns out it was from me. So,
Hmm.
so I had this huge awakening and I've been feeling so much better this year. And like, even with all this craziness going on, I feel solid in myself and it's so different. And that awareness can totally transform everything. It's deeper awareness than I normally have. And so it's been really great. So has anything like that happened for you recently or since I've talked to you? I mean, my God, I filmed you at the end of when was it? 2000, end of 2014, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's been, wow, I guess 6 years
Yeah.
since we were together in that way. I know I've seen you a couple times, certainly connected with you before. Well, first I wanna say, I remember the first time we met each other. It's been a while. I
I
wanna say
know.
at least 15 years ago.
That's crazy.
It was with that women's group. There was like the Ladies Who Brunch, and then there was this other group called Next Gen Femmes. I'm not sure if you were a part of that group, but anyway, you and I met, and there was this kindred connection, that we have some things in common as far as our childhood and our stories and things like that. And then, when you're telling me about your year last year, I'm going, oh boy, it's like almost hearing my own story.
Wow.
So I'm moved by that. And I'm also reminded of this human condition thing that I keep coming back to during this pandemic, which is how connected, once again, feeling how connected we we really are, and how much that we have in common as far as our internal world, and I think I forget that sometimes, how much others are going through, like turmoil and, and suffering and, and hopefully healing, like you're talking about. And I was writing some notes before we talked just about some things that I had gone through, hoping to, like, maybe my story would help other people. I know your story has helped others, and you're so candid about it. And I love that about you, Lisa. I cherish that about you. It's like it's a breath of fresh air.
Oh, thank you.
Because I feel like you put out there what so many people are afraid to talk about. But like I said, like there's this human condition happening. We all struggle with our own internal things. Some people choose to look at them deeper than others. I feel like you're one of those people. You and I are a bit of those deeper thinker kind of types, or what, I don't even know how you would label us, but we kind of live in that deeper world where we reflect.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that 2018 and, coming into 2019 for me, it's always interesting to have the experience and then look back at it. But, I'll just say, having the experiences that I had, and I too dealt with in some business situations, where I was, working with people, attaching my own project to it, something I had worked on for many years. And, it's kind of like my baby. And then I kind of went through these motions with some of these people, where what I found was happening was there became this power play. And, feelings like betrayal came up for me. And I tried to continue on and just learn from the experience. But, frankly, got very, very sad and disenchanted with some aspects of the entertainment industry. I've been in the industry for a while, but this was one of my first experiences in this aspect of, bringing this other group on board. And what I found was, when I was paying attention, was there were things like, not full transparency. There were things like manipulation. There were things like I felt telling me things that I wanted to hear rather than what I could clearly see was going on. And anyway, it was extremely painful for me. And I found myself, a lot of that experience, being triggered and in some despair. And so, I too kind of like went to a place of some darkness and sadness and some grief. And then, thank God, for people who care about me and love me, and people that have been in the industry for years, people who don't necessarily move in the, not everybody in the entertainment industry works in those ways. But what I've come to learn is a lot of people who move in the top executive, not all executives, but kind of move in that hierarchy world. A lot of times, sadly, what they're still doing to artists are they're trying to say, yes, 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 we'll do, and then kind of take credit for all your work. This is
Oh,
an age-old story, right?
right.
We've heard this so many times. I mean, since the beginning of time, to artists of all, artists, painters and musicians, and, so like Me Too, right? I'm a Me Too story. And so I finally realized that, okay, I could spend my time feeling the betrayal and feeling this grief and feeling this. Ultimately, I have my project still. So I'm really happy about that. Lisa, like
Yeah.
I feel like I walked through this fire, for lack of better term, felt all the feelings of betrayal and also, got to see a clearer picture of like what that world was. And then, I finally started kind of dipping into and listening to people talk about how we can move through darkness in our life and what we can learn. And I started like realizing that for every endeavor that we have as artists, and I do believe this, the bigger the endeavor or the higher the goals or whatever, one will probably feel that much resistance. And like I've started to bring that reality into how I work
Mm.
as a creative. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Like there's going to be for as much if you have this endeavor and it seems kind of like a dream reality, like, but you can do it, right? You're going to persevere and you've spent the time and you've had the commitment and you've cultivated it, but that's not all there usually is to that kind of thing.
It's
And I
almost
think
like the
support.
roots of the tree need to go as deep as the branches are gonna go into the sky to
I
hold
love
you
the tree
in.
metaphor.
Yeah, because
I love the
against
tree
that,
metaphor.
because I love that you're right, that's we don't build that into the dream, and that's what I'm trying to do with this podcast for the next budding dreamers out there or people who are in this on this path and they're getting weakened by it. I'm trying to, like, reflect back to the people behind me or wherever around me and go, "Wait a minute, you guys, I think I figured something out. There's darkness here, and it's part of it. So just embrace it, figure it out, whatever the thing is you have to figure out that's inside of all of that." But don't give up. And I always say
Right.
hashtag keep going.
Yeah, and I mean, and for me anyway, it has to be experiential. I mean, I do work with some filmmakers, and I always try to be open to people if they have questions about like the development world or the distribution world or whatever that is. So I can say, hey, watch out for this, or make sure you protect yourself in this area or whatever, because I didn't have as much as I would have hoped for when I was going through it. So I think that we can help each other, and I think it's so important. And I also think some of it has to be experiential, because now, having dipped into some of the darkness, now I look at that whole situation and go, okay, if I do A, B, or C, I'm going to have to accept in this realm of the business that they're going to be going for this. How can I not take it personally and just hold strong in the areas that I need to, but also know that unfortunately, this is the way that system is set up. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yep.
And then there's also like, what I also try to do is just, align myself with groups that are truly for independent filmmakers, and are looking out for independent filmmakers. And we all help each other and we all nurture each other. And those are the people that I go to for the support, you know?
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I need to walk behind you on that path because I've got other films I wanna make now and that, I definitely didn't even go into that world with the first film, and I know that, I worked at a film studio for a while, and it's like, I don't even the whole thing kinda terrifies me because it's like I always kept my art separate from that. But
Uh-huh.
if I'm gonna
Yes.
make really get these films out to a wider audience, and also even with Soul Providers, I do want that to be a docuseries, and I wanna visit other cities and film other people, and
Yeah.
have it be like an ongoing thing, and so I will have to, at some point, deal with somebody in distribution, and so I will be dealing with all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, it's back to that concept of like, in my mind, like the bigger the endeavor, the more obstacles one will potentially face. And to
Mm.
somehow learn to work in that world with all of those pieces, because, I cried in the corner for about 6 months because of all this stuff,
Oh my god, me
And-
too.
right?
Yeah, it's because it triggers you, so it's like kryptonite. And so
Yeah.
once it triggers you, your normal faculties of being able to think deeper or be worldly or I don't know, all that stuff went out the window and I was just like and I knew what I was going through, but it was just all encompassing
Yeah.
crippling, like, I feel like I'm gonna die. And even though I knew on the
Right.
surface, I'm like, this seems, who cares what this person is doing? Like,
Right.
she's just one person. Like, who cares? Like, and there were multiple situations though. That's where it was like a machine gun, she's like da, 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 every time I turned around. But this one particular person that I worked with really like was the main catalyst for a lot of this. I was just like, what? And it messed up my my, what do you call it? Like the part of me that,
Mojo.
yeah, well, definitely, but also like the part of me that just as an artist, you have to trust that you're getting the right thing. Or, also if I serve a client, like if I'm making, so this was for a video series I made for somebody. So it was for somebody else. I didn't make it for myself. And they were really weird about it. They didn't say they didn't like it, but they didn't use it. They didn't give me any feedback.
Mm.
They advertised looking for somebody to be in a video that it was exactly the video that I just did for them.
Mm-hmm.
And when I asked her, I said, "Are you not happy with the video? Because I will redo it if you want me to or whatever." And it made me feel like all of our conversations we had, I feel like I'm pretty good at, like, when someone tells me something, I can get a gist of it,
Mm.
And then I felt really weird because I don't want to be like a bad business person or I don't want her to be like unhappy. But then
Yeah.
it was like, at the end of the day, I realized that I'm not responsible for her not doing her part in this. And
Mhm.
there has to be a relationship here. She has to
Yeah.
be able to talk to creative people and be able to, because that's what it is when you're working with professionals. If you have someone do your website or you have someone, a photographer, like you have to be able to say, you know what, I like this, like be respectful of their perspective, but
Yeah.
say, I was hoping for something a little bit brighter. I really want to get into commercial work. So I was hoping I wouldn't look so dramatic. Is there any way we can do that? Like, speak to people with respect. And I know a lot of people don't understand how to do that. And so maybe they just don't say anything at all. I don't know. But she didn't know how to talk to me, or she was playing a game. Maybe
Mhm.
she was intimidated by the fact that I'm who I am and that I'm strong, I'm open, I'm whatever. Maybe that threw her off. I don't know.
Mhm.
Whatever
Mhm.
it is, it was her situation. And I
Right.
had to really do that surgery, and I had to take out what part was hers and what part was mine, and then look at mine and go, why do I fall apart when a person like this interacts with me in that way? What
Yeah.
happened to me at some point in my past that made me question myself and then fall apart? What is that? So that's what my year was all about. But I wasn't doing it from a powerful position like it sounds like right now. Like you say, looking back is always wonderful. You're like, well, and you have your pipe in your mouth, like, well, back in the day, At the
Right.
time,
When
I
you're
was
in
like,
it, it's different.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure all my friends were so sick of hearing about it, but I'm like, I mean, it's just ridiculous. Why doesn't she say anything to me? This is insane. She works with creatives. Why doesn't she know how to talk to me? And it was like, I'm all my journals. I'm sure God was rolling his eyes at me. I mean, it was just, it was painful to go through this, but I made
It
it.
can be such a, I mean, I just, that's what I love about you is the transparency, Lisa. Not everybody's able to do that. And for whatever reasons, I get, but
Yeah.
I need to be around people who are processing, and like that whole part about like what's mine and what's not mine. I relate in that way that I started looking at my situation with the executives I was working with and just starting to like, you know, my reactions are my responsibility, right? But their behavior is theirs, and
Right.
how they move in the world, right? And like I don't have to take on, oh, they were not upfront, and that's not about me. And I think
Mhm.
initially what I did was when things didn't feel on the up and up, when things I felt some betrayal and things like that, I started thinking that had something to do with me, right?
Right.
And then it took me, I think, because I was so close to my project. I mean, in my creative mind, we're all kumbaya, like we're all in this together. We're going to do this, we're going to drive up the mountain, right? And it's going to be great. And then all of a sudden the wheels started falling off and the front lights started falling off. And all of a sudden it's like, no, somebody else was driving driving the vehicle up the hill, and I'm like back on the back, like holding on to the bumper,
Oh
and I'm
God.
going, hey, where the hell are y'all going? And then it was like, okay, then I started realizing that this machine, that's kind of what I call it now. This is the module. You know what I mean? Like, this is the system. I'm just the creative artist who has a project that I love, and I'm very connected to it on a deeper level. And, they're just doing what they're doing. And that's not about me, but wow, is that and then, okay, what am I responsible for? How I react to them, the decisions I make for myself, the kind of boundaries I set up for myself. And I was proud of myself because I set some very strong boundaries, and I ultimately rallied for my credit and the things that were important to me, despite the fact that I didn't feel in the end like they really championed me. That was
Mhm.
probably one of the most painful things to go through.
Ugh.
When all of a sudden you realize that the people you are aligned with aren't necessarily acting on your behalf in a way that is honorable.
Yep.
And and so I think unwinding all that, like you said, like now that I smoke my pipe and look back at it,
Ah.
one can see, like you said, back to the separating it out, and I think that's where, like, I don't know how you feel now, but for me it's like, okay, now I can start integrating, but damn, that can take a while, but it's
Oh
like,
my
okay, just
God.
accept that, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like when I started planning for the film festival, it sort of helped me because I didn't realize, just like everything else I do, I have these big ideas and then I have no idea how it's gonna be all encompassing and take over my life. So that's how it was with the film festival, and I was actually glad because it was something I could control and something I could
Mhm.
focus on.
Yeah.
But it was always in the back of my mind and it was in me because I was constantly processing it. And, you know, that's how it is for art for me. Anything artistic that I do or whatever, it's usually always in me. And then when I finally do it, it's just the end part. It's like when other people see the
Right.
physical part?
I
So,
relate. Hmm.
yeah, so it was like I was walking around with this and it was like it was not getting less. That's a sign, I think, for anybody listening to this. If there's something in you that someone's done to you or something that you feel you don't like the way it went, whether an interaction with someone personally, a falling out, or a business scenario that just left you feeling weird, if it sticks with you over months, that's sort of like a major arcana in the tarot cards. You need to take a look
Yes.
at it because
Yes.
there's little things we can kind of break down and figure out, but those
Hmm.
big ones,
Yeah.
your normal ways of dealing with stuff are not going to take care of it. And so you need to get in a bigger thought process with it and really work on it and journal. And I mean, what was your process like bringing it down to like the tiny pieces? What was your, because like I said, I journaled and that really helped me. And also audio journals because I feel like I express myself differently when I talk.
Yeah,
Hopefully
I
nobody
relate
ever
to that
finds
too.
those.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, we have on our phones, right? We can when I'm walking around with my dog, I put a lot of thoughts down on my phone. But as far as the process, see, I don't know anybody else that I could talk to about this in this way, Lisa. I mean, it's just so funny. It's like, of course, we get right into it.
I know, I was
Um,
thinking I'm not even gonna we'll get
what's your
to your
process?
films. We're gonna get to your films and all that stuff in a bit, but I'm like, let's get
Yeah.
to the meat right now,
Well,
the elephant in the
because
room.
yeah, because I don't know about you, but anyway, I watch a documentary or a film. I want to know the story about how it was made. I want to know the internal process, because
Yeah.
like everything, I feel like almost all art, evolves from like this process we're talking about, right? The
Right.
churning, the desires, the passion, the unconscious, right? We're always working stuff out in our unconsciousness, but as far as the process, and I too, I think that the larger the reaction that I have inside of me, it's like that part where you're like, oh no, not another spiritual lesson, ha ha he he. But I do believe that the bigger my reaction, the larger the opportunity, for
Yeah.
growth. And I can go kicking and screaming along the way, but ultimately, if I can recognize it, And I think I did when I was going through the situation with this company. I did recognize it because I had some strong internal reactions, and you can only inundate your partner so much with stuff.
Right.
So
Before they're just like, oh my God,
yeah,
again
yeah,
about
yeah, yeah.
this.
And he's a business person, so he's like, "Well, just do that." I'm like, "It's not that simple." But
Yeah.
but I think, like you said, yeah, I'm a big journaler, lots of journaling, lots and lots of journaling. Just get it out. First, get the feelings out, and then things start to come to the surface of what's really going on, like you were talking about, I think, when you were
Mhm.
driving and stuff. And understanding that, like, this might take a while, because when you're trying to make business decisions around your art, there's the business of it, and then there's the feelings, and I think that, unfortunately, I wish there were more platforms for creatives to talk about, because a lot of us tell stories that are very deeply connected to their own life. Like this one is for me that I was telling. And so that's why I call it my baby, because it's about some healing for me. And those are the stories I want to tell. I want to tell stories about transformation and healing. That's just what I'm interested in. So when this group was making decisions, I felt like, it affected me personally, because, hey man,
Yeah.
this is about some healing. This is important. I see it differently than they do. So, just like having, I have some mentors I work with. So just having an outlet to, talk to them about things, trying to frame things differently, and just getting out the feelings, and then getting to the point where it's like separating everything out a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then what I started doing is I started working on other projects. I feel like I might have kind of heard that in what you were saying. I started writing a screenplay about a similar topic to that, but in a different direction. Like you said, you started working on something a little bit more that you can control. And, as artists, I made a short film while I was doing it. So I have this creative energy. I need to create. I think that's another thing we share. A lot of us artists share. We need to create. So I started creating things. And it was so funny, because in the middle of it, I started realizing that, it was like my psyche just screaming out to go, you can't control all of me, damn it. And just trying to find those outlets,
Yeah.
meditation, yoga, the things that ground me into um, this internal life that I have, and nurturing it, because this business world, particularly the one that I was in, wasn't doing it. And I was really reacting to not feeling supported as a woman, filmmaker, storyteller. It was crazy, Lisa, because it was right in the middle of the Me Too movement. I was going, holy crap, like me too, I'm like in my office going, me too, me too,
Right.
and I'm telling a woman's story, and I'm feeling cut off at the knees as a woman storyteller. How is this happening? And then I went, oh my God, like one of the big lessons for me was um, we haven't changed. We're just in the middle of change. Things haven't changed.
Right.
So it kind of brought me back into like, oh, I'm just part of the human condition, because my pain or my suffering can make me feel you know, unique. And yeah, I'm a unique creative, but I'm also part of the human condition. So there was a leveling that happened too. And then I started reaching out to other women. And then the transformation, like, of the pain and the suffering and the anger of feeling cut off at the knees, kind of moved into a direction of more empowerment. What can I focus on? And I started just finishing my project on my own. And then all this great creative shit started happening. I started writing poetry into this project that I never saw a place for. I started finding my voice in a way that was never in the story. And it was like, I had this feeling, I don't know if you felt this way before, but I had this feeling of like, damn, I needed to go through that to get to here.
Oh, yeah. It's like my entire life. Well, for me, I want to say before I forget, one of the things I really did during all this time, and that's really helped me, because I start to feel like I'm reacting. I'm reacting to something. There's a
Yeah.
stimulus there and I'm reacting to it. And
Yeah.
like that every day. So I wake up and I feel this reaction of like stress or anger or defensiveness. And so
Hmm.
one thing that I found that kind of helps diffuse that is I just stop and I just picture the part of me that's reacting as a child.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds so stupid and whatever for people who are like, oh God, but try it. Like I really did picture, and I was the loving parent to myself that she didn't get. And so I just turn to her and just hug her, or I just look at her and acknowledge her. And I don't think that's such a huge part of something somewhere in my story, that I think there were things that happened and nobody was there for me. Nobody soothed me or saw me or just hugged me and said, I know this feels like this is everything in the entire world, but I
Mm.
promise you it's not. This is one thing that you're going to experience. You're going to learn things from it and you're going to be okay. Like, cause I really feel like, oh my God, this is all things, and it really isn't, but it feels like that. And because it feels like that, it becomes like that unless I can stop that cycle somehow. And so that was one thing that really helped me. And also, like I said, journaling, but I would go back and listen to it too, or reread it and try to see it from different perspectives, almost like different characters in myself, and try to really hear it like from a person who would not agree with me. I would imagine reading that journal as a person who doesn't agree with me and just hearing me as a whining person. And then I would go back in and read it as a person who absolutely loves me and supports me blindly and doesn't like the person I'm talking about. And then, so I felt like I could look at it from so many different perspectives when I finally realized what was left in the bottom of the pan, if you boil everything else out, was that's what the thing was that I needed to learn, which for me was, um, it feels like for me, I always have two distinct personalities because I was very shy and quiet when I was younger and I didn't really talk, but I observed everything. I loved observing people. And so I would watch people and I would listen. I knew what was going on. And I'm also sensitive to energy, which is maybe like kind of psychic-y or I don't know, whatever, but very, very sensitive to energy. And that even heightened after Derek and Michael died. But then I
Uh-huh.
have this other side of me that was tired of me being quiet because I was missing out on things. And so at around 8th grade, I became friends with these girls and they were really they thought I was hilarious. So they were like, "Oh my God, you're so funny." And so they were very outgoing and fun and so I kind of developed this like part of me that was really outgoing and funny and like a leader. I was going to say leadery-ish. I don't even know what I was but
New word. I like it.
yeah. I like making new words.
Leaderish.
Leaderish. And so I had this whole other part of me, and that part of me got shit done. It was
Yeah.
interesting. People respond to that kind of energy, that
Hmm.
kind of talking clearly like how I am right now. Like
Yes.
using words and developing, writing an email, or like there was an email back then, but I'm just saying like just being very clear and strong and pushing myself out there. um and it also kind of felt like it was like my higher self or my spirit, and it was sort of like a stage mom to the shy part of me. It became
Uh-huh.
like this whole thing that I did my whole life, where I would like get jobs, and if I were in that stage mommy vibe or whatever, I would within a couple weeks go, "What the hell am I doing here?" Because the other part of me would come back and be like, "I don't belong here." And so I always had this sabotage thing going on because it was like the shy, quiet, observant, deeper part of me was like, I need to be a writer. I need to live in nature. I need to, figure out life and help people. That's all I want to do. And this other part of me is like, I need to be on stage. I need to be creating businesses. I need to like whatever, create a film festival. It's like very much of a doer. And if I don't do stuff, I get depressed because that part of me is repressed. And if I
Yeah.
don't take myself away and be reflective, that part of me starts to get, and that's more of the serious part of me that is, I can never ignore that part of me, but I do. And that's part of the
The
problem.
reflective part.
Yeah. Cause I feel
Yeah.
like that's ultimately me. And,
Uh-huh.
and if
Yes.
I don't honor that part of me, the whole thing goes down. Whereas if I
Yeah.
don't honor the part of me that does stuff, I feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing in life. Like I don't know. The point is there's a space between those two parts of me, and maybe this is true for everybody. I don't know. I'm just a person trying to figure things out. But there's a space between those two where there's almost like a disassociation, like where I'm not always aware. And so the part of me that's the stage mom and out there doing stuff, I started doing video production for people. I never wanted to do that. I never wanted filming to be a job. And I would do videos for people that I liked, but I never wanted to do it for pay, like ever. But then after all this stuff with Derek and Michael dying and all this stuff, I thought, okay, let me just try this. Maybe it'll expand me. And it did. It's totally different to do your craft or your art or the thing that is really close in your heart, but do it for a client. And
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Mhm.
it's like so different. It's like a whole different experience. And
Yes.
in some ways, I absolutely hate it, and I was right to stay away from it. But in other ways, it's really helped me grow in a lot of ways and stand behind myself. Because what happened was the part of me that was all out there, I am doing videos for people, and for the most part, I can figure it out. But with this particular client, and the way that she handled it, it really triggered the quiet, reflective part of me. And
Mhm.
that part said, "No more. We're not
Uh-huh.
doing this anymore. What
Mhm.
are you doing? Stop putting yourself out there. Are you crazy? Like,
Mhm.
we don't belong out here." It just went into tailspin.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
didn't know what was going on because I'm just like, what am I? I'm just like me, which one am I? Maybe I'm the consciousness floating above each or whatever. But so
Yes.
that's what that whole up to December was all about. And then finally in December, I actually saw it very clearly that I have these two very distinct parts of me that, and then someone said, when I was explaining this to someone, they go, well, so what's the answer? And I'm like, there is no answer. It's just
Yeah.
about being conscious of it.
Right.
That's it. I
Yes.
just need to be aware that when I'm putting stuff out in the world, I've got a very, very deep, sacred, wise, but sensitive part of myself. I got to remember
Yes.
that. And then when I'm in that deeper part of myself, I need to remember that it's important for me to share what I learn, because otherwise it starts to feel, I start to get closed off, and that's not a good thing.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, once again, I really relate to that, Lisa. I
Good.
really relate to that. Yeah, the different aspects of ourselves and learning how to bring, I'll speak for myself, how I learn, when I was growing up, I don't think that I had the dialogue or the understanding or the support or whatever it was to understand these facets of myself. And as I've gotten older and tried to surround myself around people who are, looking at themselves, having some awareness of their own inner world, and then realizing that I don't want to compartmentalize, all these aspects of myself, but also, like, who is it safe to really have these dialogues with? And I think for me, the best part of bringing it out into light, or the most helpful part of dealing with these, and I think a lot of creatives are like this, is finding the right people to kind of dip my toe in, to like live in this world of, some people call it like the dark and the light. I mean, there's all different ways you could label this, right? But I remember when I was teaching, like 10 years ago, I was teaching, and I've had a couple mentors over the years. And I was going to class one day to teach this class, and I was just feeling really not horrible. I don't remember. I was going through something. And I was talking with one of my mentors, and she goes, why don't you just kind of let the class know a little bit of, I thought, are you kidding me? At that point in my life, I was pretty compartmentalized, and it was just afraid of revealing these aspects of myself and not having experience with it, and it not being safe. And so I just started practicing. And the first time I did it, I don't remember what I said, something like, yeah, I didn't get much sleep last night. I mean, it was really little, but I remember the terror I was feeling of exposing, like, that maybe I wasn't perfect, or maybe I had this whole other part of myself that wasn't revealed to a certain, people in my life, for fear of being judged or whatever. And I think that's a big part of it for me, is that I wasn't comfortable enough with it myself, that I was always afraid of being judged by it. And slowly I've been able to, I've been teaching now for 10 years, let my students into some of my own life, my own quote unquote inner world turmoil. And it's been so freeing, but I really relate to it, Lisa. I really relate to what you're talking about and the delicateness of it all. And how there is no answer, right? There is no golden answer. It's just those of us are seekers, those of us we feel a lot. I think that, this is what we deal with, especially as creatives. These things get touched, and hopefully we continue to grow and learn,
Yeah.
about ourselves. And hopefully that helps us when we're working with others, or, working on our projects or our art. That helps us be and have more depth in our work. I don't know. I hope
Yeah.
that's what we can do with all these feelings and thoughts.
Well, what it came down to for me, what I realized is that what was happening outside of me was happening inside of me. And
Yeah.
that part of me that was the stage mom was judging the sensitive part of me. Just
Uh-huh.
like this person wasn't being sensitive in how she was interacting with me as a
Mhm.
professional, even. I'm not talking about hugging me or anything like that. I'm just talking about being respectful and being aware and conscious of the fact that you're working with another person and just that whole part of it. But she was an outer reflection of what I was doing to myself. And so
Right.
that's why it
Right.
exasperated what was happening in me, because as soon as that part of me had a reaction, an emotional reaction to what was happening, the part of me that's a stage mom goes, "Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. I can't believe you're being like this. This is
Right.
not this is not that, this is just business. This is just a video. Like, calm down." It did that. I could feel it. I could feel myself judging, and then when I really like looked at it and go, why don't I stand behind myself, right or wrong?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
why do I do that to myself?
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? I kind of learned a similar thing from my experience last year, which was, I remember when I was going through, I was talking to a friend, and she was kind of just, you know, um, compassionately suggesting that, usually we're not triggered or bothered by something unless there's something inside of us that maybe can't do it for ourselves. And I
Yeah.
remember I knew her well enough to know that, things that she dropped in, and commented when she knew I was in a place of like, churning, it came from a very neutral, loving place. So I really just tried it on, and I went, oh my God, she's right. And this similar thing where it's like, wait a minute, where am I not believing in myself? Where am I not able to, just like, despite this, that, and the other not happening in a way that I feel is supportive, I strongly support myself. Like, where is that inside of me that, that there's not enough there, that, when somebody else just wants to kind of say, oh yeah, you know, says something or does something non-supportive, that it's like, you know what, that's okay, because I'm strong in this area, like the tree. I've got my deep planted roots, and I'm strong in my commitment to myself. And it
Right.
was like, oh my gosh, that was the lesson, I think, for me, and just how can I continue to build strong roots within my own understanding and confidence in who I am. And so I'm not so blown over when a certain person who I may look to for financial reasons, or you know, in that way it was kind of a financial support, which can be a big reason for a lot of
Oh
us
my
creatives,
God.
right?
That can be such a trigger because
It
it
can
has
be
to
a
do with
huge
your
trigger.
security. You're like, I'm
Security.
doing everything right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm being respectful. I'm being clear. I'm being upfront. You're fucking with my money. Like, it just has
Yeah.
to get like,
No, I
sorry. Like,
know. I mean, it's like, what are the biggies, right? Like our sexual relations, our shelter, our security. I mean, it's like when you start, when you feel, when I think a sensitive creative, or maybe any human being feels, influenced, it's like, those are the biggies,
yeah.
you know?
Right.
And
And
if and if somebody's paying you, or if it's a project that you might depend on for that year, those are some interesting, situations to rub up against when people aren't necessarily playing by your rules, right?
right. And in this case, it was going to launch a lot of other work for me. It was a By
Mhm.
releasing the videos, it would have been a high profile situation and helped my career a lot. but so
Wow.
that it was big. It was like the tentacles went out far. But when we can get to that point where we realize there's something in me, even though I think I'm really supportive of myself and that I'm really self-aware, this is it's feeling like it's in a blind spot. And I'm
Yeah.
like, whoa, 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 what's happening? There's some kind of craziness happening inside of me. Um, Once you can get to the other side of it, and it does sometimes take a long time. I mean, even for me, that I have a podcast where I talk about all this stuff. I journal about it. All my friends, we talk about things. But for me, it was still something that took like about 8 months, I want to say. It took a long time. And
Yeah.
so, but once I got to the other side of it, I can be grateful. I can say thank you for that lesson because that inside of me was weakening me and it was
Yeah.
keeping me from, and it wasn't just about this particular person. I was doing this across the board in so many situations. And a lot of people have told me, why don't you realize like that you're really good at what you do? Or why don't you fight more for yourself? And like, people would always say stuff like that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I fight for myself. I really didn't get it until this happened. And now I realize, like, yeah, you're right. I really didn't. I didn't do that. I didn't have that part of me that would go, no, you're not, your reality is not going to come in and become my reality. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but
No,
that
that's a
part,
perfect way of describing it, I think.
well, thank
Yeah.
you. That's why I had you on here because I knew you would say that at some point. No.
Your reality does not become my reality. I mean, to me, I think that's a profound thing to say and not always easy. And especially when, again, you and I are like kindred spirits because, the details are different, but I too was dealing with something where, this could be quote unquote a game changer for me. This could have evolved into something. Now that I look at it, it might have not been the something that I wanted to do. But at the time, this could have evolved into something for me that would have been lucrative, and that could have been, just building my career in a bigger way. Now I look back, I'm grateful it didn't happen. I'm so grateful it didn't happen. But at the
Yeah.
time, I really depended on it, right?
Yep.
And so, that did affect me in many ways, but it also, taught me the value of no matter what it is, be very, for me, I need to be very mindful of, doing my own investigation to the best of my ability, and also watching for signs, right? Because I look back, I see signs. I don't know about you. And forgiving myself for not, making the decisions based on every single sign. I think sometimes we just kind of have to just go for it. But like, also using that wisdom, the next time around, go, you know what? I saw 1, 2, 3. Okay, 3 red flags. Let me just put a pause on this. No matter how good it could be for me, no matter how much this thing could help my career, so for me, there's like the growth of the inner world, and there's also like the business aspect and the lessons that I got to learn about my own, um, watching that magical thinking and being true to myself, watching the red flags, and the next time around, hopefully integrating those too. And also, like you said, like if something's really affecting me, then okay, that's the time to really go inward and investigate. What is this place inside of me that isn't able to, support me? And where do I need to get those? I know if, as far as people listening and solutions, what after I've come out of this, I started to take action because sometimes I think we need to go inward and take that time, and other times I need to go outward. And so, I joined a group called DPA. They're a group of producers that they're growing, and they look out for documentary producers. They look out for making sure that we have the credits that we deserve. They look out for making sure that, if we're the people who create the content, that when it comes to all the hurdles we have to jump in these distribution documents, that we actually have an organization that looks out for how these contracts are laid out, and that we're actually getting compensation for the work that we did. Believe it or not, even today, producers don't have in my opinion, independent producers don't have a strong structure to back them up. And I think DPA is doing that. And some really wonderful filmmakers are a part of that who are very savvy. But it's just, a way that we can be treated fairly. And so I joined that group. I've joined some other women's groups. I try to help women, like I said, who are going through these things where they're like, hey, I've got this project. I put all this money and time for it. Do I want to jump on board and try to get it to a TV network, or do I want to finish it myself? And then, really understanding what you're looking at if you're making those decisions. Because most people just go, hey, that's a great idea. I'm just going to go try to align with a production company and get a contract with a network. And they have no clue, like I did, the
Right.
hurdles, the things that are going to potentially be taken away from you. And that's really the reality of it. And then if I finish it on my own, what kind of avenues would I have as an independent filmmaker to actually get a sale, and then B, get it out in the world with everything changing from, theatrical distribution to streaming. It's a lot of hoops to jump through. So I'm trying to just, help, particularly to women right now, help women who are making those decisions. And then there's something about doing that, Lisa, that empowers that part of me, going back to what you and I have been talking about a lot, which is that part of ourselves that maybe wasn't a strong enough advocate, for whatever reasons, or wasn't able to say no, or just, no, I want this, or that's not okay, or just whatever it is, and had these big reactions. If I can try to be an advocate for people who maybe are going through some of this stuff, what I find is it helps to nurture that part in myself.
Mm.
Yeah.
What does DPA stand for? Or what is it? Yeah. What are the words?
DPA, I put hang on one second. I pulled it up so we could talk about it. But it is the Documentary Producers Alliance.
Oh, wow. That
Yeah.
sounds great. I'm going to have
Yeah,
to look them up.
Yep, and they started it. Yeah, please do. And they started a few years ago, and they've been really supportive about, like I said, they have this whole document, this long document of all this wording in place, where they've done research with filmmakers over the last few years. They've worked with lawyers. They've worked with people who have done many distribution contracts to put in the wording to safeguard and protect us. So it's kind of a big deal.
Wow.
It's a big deal because, like I said, we don't have this protection, and this is like, they actually talk about authenticity and words that you just don't find that much when you get into like the TV and distribution world. No one's really talking a lot about authenticity.
Right. Yeah.
So like it exists in their wording, so anyway, yeah.
It's probably more about like believability.
Uh-huh.
People believe this, not whether or not it's authentic. Those are two totally different things.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And it's like, being accountable, working for the artist,
Yeah.
kinds
Wow,
of
they
things.
sound great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just thinking when you were talking, I'm like, it's really interesting because I have friends that are in the indie film world, and
Mm-hmm.
I've sort of dipped into it, here and there, film festivals, kind of yada, yada, yada. But then on the flip side, working in distribution at Paramount Pictures,
That's
like
right. Mm-hmm.
my boss was head of digital cinema for like, of all the studios, he was like the go-to guy. I mean, everybody would, Mark Christensen, and everybody would go to him for like knowledge about this. And it was right when, digital cinema was starting to become like a bigger thing. They still had film when I was there though. It wasn't fully digital, but he would always tell me this stuff like, it's all going to switch to digital. It's going to be streaming. It's going to be this. And he's
Ah,
really, really grounded guy, but really smart. Came from like theater. A lot of the guys in distributions come from theaters, owning movie theaters, and then moving up from there. But it's a very like, it's a weird job because it's like very like Excel spreadsheets and predictions, and it's not creative in that sense at all. But
yeah.
I was living and breathing in that whole world the whole time I was there, and it was really interesting to me. But it's like at a high level, right? Because it's Paramount Pictures. It's like one of the top studios in the
Yep.
world.
Yeah.
And I was there during, Transformers and Iron Man and all those films. And, I saw we did day and day release where it's like, Transformers was released all over the world on the same day, which had never happened before. You always stagger the releases. And anyways, so I saw things from like, there's such a big level. And then there's me, the creative, and then my friends and people I know. I just thought about this when you were talking. I thought I've always had this extreme, like I talked about the split between the part of me that's sensitive and the part of me that's like a stage mom. Well, there's always a part of me that's like a little bit more organic, right? So like the
Yeah.
film, like independent, just doing stuff for the sake of art. And then here I am at, distribution, dealing with all these huge, big things. That's like the stage mom part of me.
Yes.
And I realized I have that all over my life. As you were talking, I was picturing it and I'm like, that energy pattern is everywhere. Even like my mom grew up really rich and my dad grew up not rich at all. Like I wouldn't want to say poor, but just regular to struggling.
Yeah.
And that was always a thing going on in my life too, was like this whole idea of, the sky's the limit. My grandmother's mantra was anything you want. And she meant that. Anything. And so I go from that to like going back to our house in, Arizona, just basic life and just like, oh, anyways. And it was just weird. It was like I've always had this magical thinking. That's where it came from, because I would go to Chicago in the summers and stay at their mansion, and they had a maid that would make us breakfast and make our beds the minute we got out of the bed.
Wow.
And, my mom grew up having a driver and a cook and like all these different things. So it's like I would go there and it was this beautiful. I wrote my first, well, I wrote a story there. I called it a script. I thought it was like a movie script, but it probably wasn't. It was just like a story. But it was about a girl whose parents divorced and she was, at her grandparents' house or something. It was like so like exactly my life. But I wrote it on a typewriter in that house in the summer because I was like, yes, I'm channeling in that pipe smoking writer in me. I was a little kid. But
Wow.
I've always had that split reality.
Yeah.
I've brought it with me everywhere else. And the end of last year when I had this whole realization, it was like realizing that I have that split is I'm trying to think. It's like the important thing is to realize that I need to back myself up on both sides though, because even the part of me that's
Yeah.
the stage mom needs to be supported by the part of me that's like all about deeper meaning stuff, because I would attract people into my life that were either really grounded, all about like what's going on in the world and the environment. And so then if they saw me doing something silly and fun and weird and out there, they'd go, or even working at Paramount Pictures, they'd go, yeah, that's, the studios are running everything and you shouldn't work there. And, that kind of like organic-y person. And I kind of resonated with what they were saying. I'm like, I know what you're saying, but I still want to do it. I don't know how to describe it. But then the other part of me, the other part of me would be like, if I got too into the deep stuff, the stage mom part of me, but I would attract those kind of people too, that would be like, oh God, why are you like so sensitive about everything? I mean, you have to move things forward. Everything isn't a journal
Are
opportunity.
you sure you're not talking about just being a Sagittarius?
I know, maybe I am. But yeah, it was just like
I say that
so,
because I am. But
yeah, I
I'm
know.
being kind of flippant. But yes, I'm listening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't even know if like whatever I'm talking about, I'm sure someone will relate to, like you relate to it, and I'm sure there's somebody else out there that relates to it.
Well,
And even
yeah.
lots of people who do not relate to it at all, and that's totally fine. Don't just listen to this like you're watching an interesting movie then. But it's real, and I'm telling you, this is the truth of my situation. And I would attract in. That's why I would always have these weird, when I'd have a party or something, I'd have these weird different kinds of personalities there, which is great. That means I'm eclectic with my friendships. But my close friendships, I would always have these like very conflicty people. Like it would be one way or the other way, one part of me or the other part of me. It was just such a huge divide between these two parts of me, but I'm really seeing it even more clearly now by talking to you. So this is great.
Well, I really relate. I just, again, going back to that thing of like, and I feel like the pandemic is bringing up a lot, so much, right? So much
Right.
for a lot of us, especially us deep thinkers and feelers and healers. And, intuitives and things like that. I just think that it's, for me, it's that thing of like unity, like how much we really are connected, how fragile everything really is, and recognizing like that I'm you, you are me, that we all have these pieces of ourselves. Yours is to make it look a little different than mine. Mine's going a little different than yours. And then it's okay to have these pieces, you know what I mean? But I
Yeah.
really relate. I've always been the kind of person that have pulled different types of energies toward me. And I think because I'm so curious, I'm just curious about people. But like a lot of those energies, like if you put them in all in the same room, there'd be a lot of differences, like there'd be a lot of different, but I too think like the 2018, I pulled in that stuff, or they pulled in, or we pulled in each other because there was stuff to learn. I mean, it's so annoying, but it's true. Like I really see that now,
Yeah.
and like to try to find their value in the midst of me feeling the feelings that they triggered inside of me, and I think some people are just unconscious. I'm trying to be kind. I'm trying to be neutral. I think some people certain people are unconscious of certain things, and like allowing that to be okay too for me is a little bit hard. It's just the world that they live in. I'm not perfect. They're not perfect, you know, etc. But like, I guess we're all doing the best we can, right? Hopefully
Right.
with it all, trying to live with all the light and the dark and these different things.
Yeah, and I always
You
think of it
know?
as like enlightenment is really like, if you do you swim? Do you ever do lap swimming?
I used to. I haven't in years. Do you?
Okay, so I used to too. I haven't in a long time. But like you go down, right? You go down, that's one half of a lap, depending on unless you're in an Olympic pool. But you go down and then you turn around and you come back. And if you're sharing a lane with someone, because if it's crowded that day or whatever, then you go down, but then when you come back, you've got somebody else swimming on the other side of you. So I always feel like spiritual life lessons, whatever, the going down part, you just are dealing with all the stuff that you're dealing with, and you're learning all the things for the first time. And and when you get to the end, you're like, wow, I've really become enlightened. Like I've experienced all these things. I really get what we're here for. And I understand it's all about peace and like really being aware and owning my stuff and like all this stuff. But then when you come back, you've got to deal with all the idiots who don't know that yet. And that's where the real shit happens. I think
That's
that's when
where
it's
the rubber hits the road.
yes, that's like the
That's
hardest
where
part.
that's where one can, be in her corner crying for 6 months. That's where you hit the darkness of the soul,
Yes,
right?
because when you think you have reached a point of enlightenment or you think you know yourself, that's the hardest thing is to realize that you don't, and that
Yeah, and that
something had
like,
the power to trigger you. You feel
right?
so like,
But
ugh.
to see your own, I think for me, like to see my own fragility and rub up against like, my magical thinking, or how, I can ignore red flags, or just how, I'll just speak for my own, this one project, how badly I wanted it to go in this way and how attached I was, Lisa,
I
and then
know.
the fall from that, right? And then the kind of picking oneself up again and going, oh, okay, now like, what do I learn? What is there to learn? And
Right.
hopefully, like you were talking about, like we can create some more depth for ourselves in our being, I think, right? Because you can go into the resentment, angry, and there's room for that too. Hopefully we don't stay there, but like, like, have our process like you were talking about, and doing
Yeah.
whatever we need to do to feel those feelings and get them out, and then go, okay, what else is there? What else is here that needs to be revealed? And I love how beautiful you were talking about what you learned about your own self. And for me, it's like I learned some of the fragility. I learned how much I want people to be my own heroes. Actually, I haven't talked about that, but that's one big piece for me. I want somebody to step up for me because I didn't have that much when I was young. I wanted
Mm,
somebody to be the hero of this story and grab me by the hand and go, I'm with you, Julia. We're going to do this. And you know what? I
that's
learned,
so cute.
yeah, but I learned it didn't happen. And what I learned is I'm supposed to be her,
Oh,
you
I love
know?
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, that's what I'm saying by putting my arm around the child in me is realizing that the way this person was treating me, I can change that because I can treat myself the way that I need to be treated in this moment. I have that power. And thinking that I'm waiting for this other person to do this thing to make it right, I can make it right. I have the power. So I turned to her and went, "You're awesome. And if I have anything to change on this project, it's up to me to tell you. And if I don't say anything, then just know you did a kick-ass job. You're awesome." And it's, just like that kind of vibe coming back to myself. That's what changed everything. So yeah, it's similar. We're going through the same kind of like doot, 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 doot. I love it.
Yeah, it's just really cool to have this conversation about self-exploration in our art and how that, you know, how a lot of us have opportunities, in our creative
Yeah.
process to learn hopefully more, and, hopefully it goes in the work, and I know it's going to come through in your work and how you are in the world, because I just know that about you.
Well, and I think that's why I love doing being artistic is because it does give me the opportunity to look at these things, and I don't want it any other way. I don't want to be here just pretending like everything's fine. I really do want to come here. I'm on earth. I'm here. I'm experiencing the physical dimension. Let's get it on. Like I'm ready for the lessons, especially after Michael and Derek died. I don't have as much fear of just so many things. That got burned off of me. I don't care about any of that stuff. What was so aware or clear to me was we need to make we need to learn, and then we also need to share what we've learned out of love, and that's it.
Mm,
And then
yes.
that's the most important thing because I think
Yeah.
about Derek. Derek taught me so much, and he was such a strong, passionate person. And that was the part that hurt me so much that he was gone because it was like he totally loved life. And I just thought, okay, then I'm going to do as much as I'm squeezing this lemon or whatever it is, the orange, whatever I am, and getting every drop of juice out of this. So, because once I leave, it doesn't matter. Like you say, I'm open or I'm candid. It doesn't, when I leave, it won't matter to me wherever I go. I'm not going to be embarrassed. Like, oh my God, I can't believe I was so revealing. Like, I was getting like that in my adult life where I was getting more careful. Like, well, what if someone I know from my work situation here's what I'm saying in my podcast and I'm being like, I don't even, there's no room for that anymore. That's
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. And if that
Yeah.
person hears it and gets weird, then that's just something I have to deal with. If they hear it and get weird, that's part of their journey. They've got to
Yeah.
go on that journey and figure out, well, why did they get weird? What happened? What about me? Did I trigger in you? Like, I'm just talking
Right.
about me. If
Yeah.
that triggers you, that's you. That's not me.
Yes.
So I need to share this, and I feel it very strongly. And that I thought when I came back, there was two things. I'm like, if I'm going to do this again, I've got to be 100% revealing about myself. And there's even been examples in this podcast where I've almost, because I edit it too. And
Yeah.
sometimes I'll take something out because I usually talk myself. I don't interview all the time in this one. And I'll I'll almost edit things out. And then whenever I say I need to edit this out because it feels uncomfortable, I've done an experiment and I've left it in. And those are the ones that people email me about. Those are the ones that people go,
Yeah.
when you said
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
part, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's what people resonate with. They resonate with that weird thing that makes you uncomfortable. So if I'm going to die and not be here anymore, let me leave something that resonates with people and that helps them wake up to their soul, to their purpose, to their art, to their being. Let me do that before I leave, and that's really important to me. So thank you for everything. But I do want to talk to you about your film. But I love this whole like art therapy session because it's more than that. That sounds so small and like the little session. But I love talking with you because you're right. Talking to like-minded people who are also processing life is like a catalyst for you to even process life even more. So it's great and I love it. But now I do want to switch a little bit and talk a little bit about your work, even though we have a little bit of time left, but I don't want to not, I don't want to end this without talking about what you're working on. So I
Thank
do want to
you.
say
Yeah.
Medicine of the Wolf can you just describe a little bit about what your experience was in the festivals with that? What did it feel like? That was your first film, right? Medicine of the Wolf?
Yeah, Medicine the Wolf was my first feature documentary, my first baby. I did a short film a couple of years before that, which was kind of my film school, which I didn't put out into the public. But Medicine the Wolf was the first feature film that I actually put out into the public, and did the film festival circuit, and was very proud of it. It kind of took a life of its own, and I just kind of like jumped on board and took a ride with it, and I was very proud of it. Stars Jim Brandenburg, a world-renowned National Geographic photographer who's lived with wolves for longer than anybody known in history, and shared all of his beautiful wolf footage with me, and shared his gorgeous stories. Jane Goodall was featured in it, and a Native American named Chima Ingen, and a bunch of people that I respect who are experts on wolves. And it went to Minneapolis International Film Festival, won Best of Festival there. It won the Audience Choice Award there. It went to Sedona, which I loved going to Sedona International Festival. It went to Arizona, won the Grand Jury Award, which blew me out of the water because it was it's like a wildlife film. And this was an international film festival. And I thought, okay, we tried to do a wildlife film a little differently. And it made me think, okay, maybe we succeeded. Blackfish came out a year or two before that. And I really kind of tried to follow along this woman, the filmmaker Gabriella's footsteps in making a wildlife film that was a little bit different and might reach more people, I hoped. And that also had a lot of advocacy in it, which was kind of a newer thing back in around the 2000 era. People started making these films that were, advocacy and wildlife films. So anyway, that was my baby, and finished that, and then so it's on Amazon Prime, and it was on Hulu for a while. It actually won the Best Nature Film on Hulu in
Woo!
2016, which blew me away. I was astounded, and so that was quite a ride, Lisa. And then
Wait, let me
last
ask you a
year,
question really
yeah,
fast.
yes.
In what name 2 ways that it positively changed you as an artist and a person to put your film out and have it in the film festival circuit, in the public and in the critical world of the world?
How it changed me. One way it changed me is that it was my baby, and I lived and breathed that film, and I was very, very connected to the wolf and wolf advocacy, and there was a lot of heartbreak associated with wolves being hunted, and so it was a very personal story for me. And to carry that film out into the world and to sit with audiences, and to experience uh, that stuff was kind of like revealing parts of myself to people I'd never had before, since it was my first time around. And at times it was excruciating and amazingly rewarding. And after a while, I started realizing that that's what it is to be an artist. And I started accepting it, but definitely had my own experience in that. And I bet you can relate. And so I just realized that that's part of it. And you got to kind of prepare yourself a little bit as an artist to go through that stage of putting it out in the world.
Mm,
Now I know doesn't mean this next project is going to be any easier. It just means that I can do it. I've
right.
walked through it. I learned some kind of ways to protect myself a little bit from just what it feels like to share your art with the world as a sensitive person. But but now I know that I can, and I think too that it validated. I had it was my film, so I had I took some risks, and I took a lot of risks, and it taught me that I can trust my intuition. I can trust my creative intuition. And some of the best parts I felt that were in the film were when I really went out on a limb and trusted an intuition about something. And those are the pieces that the audience, I think, that resonated most with the audience. So it taught me to trust my dreams, trust my inner life. Um, um, write things down in journals, trust the subconscious, I guess. is the other thing I learned about it. And the subconscious came to the surface in that film, and I ended up calling it Medicine of the Wolf, which some people were like, why are you going to call it Medicine of the Wolf? That doesn't, I don't, that sounds a little woo woo, airy fairy. And and I heard them, and I was a little worried about it being my first film. My intuition was so strong about it, and I had my own experience with working with a man who was a medicine man from a Ojibwe tribe, and kind of walked, which is a whole other story, but I kind of walked through some fire and had my own spiritual experience and my own healing in my film, that I went back to it and thought, that piece of it that I learned about the medicine and this whole spiritual aspect of the wolf and indigenous cultures, that needs to be the title. And it wasn't very what is the word I'm looking for? It wasn't very mainstream,
Hmm.
and I just went, you know what? No, this is the vibration of the film. And
I love
it
it.
was okay. Like, once it was out in the world, like, I didn't feel any pushback. It just was what it was. And so, to any artists who are listening, yes, there's things you have to learn about marketing. Yes, there's images that the distributors are going to want you to use, and the ones you're not going to want to use. And that's a very hard process too for an artist, but ultimately it has to be your own vision to a certain degree, or you're never going to feel like you're never going to feel that same connection that was so important to you to begin with. And you got to be true to some of that. So I'm so glad that I listened to my intuition, because even people who I really respected were like, oh, I don't know about that. I think it goes back to what you and I were talking about. It's like, we have to learn as artists and as humans to trust certain parts of ourselves, because that is living in authenticity.
Right. And what you said about the parts that you really went out there on
Yeah.
your intuition are the parts that people resonated with, and to trust your subconscious.
Yeah.
That's basically what I just said about the podcast, and the parts that because I just riff. I go on a topic and I go on it like it's I don't know, a sermon in a way. I don't know what it is. It's something I'm sharing. And that part that I wanna edit out because it makes me uncomfortable, and if I trust it, there's a reason why that's in there. I don't know why. It might make me uncomfortable because I feel revealed. Those are the parts that people resonate with, so I've learned to also trust that part that I used to in regular world, when you're working in an office or whatever, we hide those parts of ourselves, but it's in art, you get to unfold it, and you get to be amazed by how you realize there's something bigger helping us. There's something else going on.
Absolutely. And, I think about that a lot. I think about how I can try to continue to tap into the human condition, try to tap into this collective consciousness, utilize my dream world and my own subconscious, meditate, try to live more. And I call it my heart brain rather than my head brain. Not that the head brain, needs to make certain decisions and, et cetera, et cetera. But as an artist, try to like live in that heart brain more, because I think that ultimately as storytellers, we used to tell stories around the fire when back in the caveman days. It's like,
I
we need each other.
Yes.
We need each other.
And we
We
need
need
each
each other
other's
to feel.
stories. We need each
Yeah.
other's stories.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of those stories come from like our subconscious and our dream world and our intuition, right?
Yeah.
And it's like those scary places. When I've been working on this screenplay, and a friend of mine said to me, she read some of it. She goes, "Keep writing." At first, I was like, "Oh my God, it's not good enough." But after a while, I went up. I get it. Like, drop into that deeper thing, and I've heard some people say like, it's like, if it's not embarrassing you, or if it's not, then people are probably not interested, or just like,
Yeah.
or as I teach actors, and it's like, we're always saying to an actor, it's like, you have to risk exposing all of you. And I think as artists, that's what makes people interested in our work the most, is when, like, some of the risks I took in Medicine of the Wolf, where it's like, I don't know where this is going. I don't know how people are going to respond. I know that when I sit in an audience and I watch it with people, I'm coming out of my skin, because it's that close to my blood, my bone, my heart. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
that deep inside of me that wants to be expressed, and that and that it lives deep inside of me. You know what I mean? And just being willing to like offer it up,
Right.
you know?
Well, and with Soul Providers, there was a lot of things going on with the whole thing of why I couldn't finish it and why I don't know. There's a lot, and I'm not going to unpack that whole thing right now. But I do want to say that I think I was meant to live with that film through that whole period of time to be sort of like braces, like if someone or like crutches, or I see it more as braces though, because it was such a part of like what held me up and kept me thinking right. Because I was so destroyed after Derek and Michael's deaths that it was weird that I even did a film, because the first feeling I had was like, I don't want to do anything at all. And I really feel like it was Derek, because he was always such a huge supporter of me. And I feel like it was about a year after he died, I started getting a feeling of being creative again. And I thought, well, if I am going to be creative, I'm not going to do anything with it. So don't expect me to start thinking about film festivals, because I'm not, you know? And then it was kind of like little by little, I was like, okay. And it was like, look, just set up some cameras, film some people, just be creative. Don't think about anything, just do it. And
Mhm.
so it came from such a pure place of not even wanting to market it or to think about the movie poster or like, I didn't even
Yeah.
think of that. And that part of me now embarrassed me a little bit, because now that I'm stronger and that stage mom is back on the scene, I was kind of like, oh my God, why did I do that? Right. Like that one shot there. Why didn't I introduce because I tried that a million times. I tried doing a voiceover of introducing my story and I didn't like it. And so anyways, I
Right.
tried so many different things. So then it was like screening it or having anyone outside of my head see this film. Um, those parts that I said I wouldn't care about and that I wouldn't let myself, whatever, I had to stand behind that. And I had to go, this was your healing. Don't judge it. There's something in this for somebody else. Do
Mhm.
not judge this. Just let it be
Yeah.
what it is. And if you want to reorganize it later for the um docu-series type thing, then cool, do that. But let this be this and stand behind yourself. And so that was really hard for me. So I kind of understand what you're talking about from a real perspective, not just like, oh yes, puffing on my pipe. Yes, I can understand that, Julia. You must have felt very exposed, but now that I've actually gone through it, I really get it. Like, holy shit, that is someone asked me recently, "What'd you feel?" And I felt like dying. Like, I felt
Yeah.
like dying. I felt sick.
Yep.
I felt exposed, embarrassed, uncomfortable, like all the horrible things.
Yeah.
But I also felt incredible. I felt so much gratitude. I was so grateful for you guys, like incredible amounts. So I don't know. It's this wonderful experience of life. It's everything.
Yeah, it's like we get to be creative. I think, I keep going back to that, like, oh my gosh, what a gift that I get to express myself in this way and then learn to walk myself through it. And sometimes it's excruciating because a lot of people don't share their stuff with people or audiences or whatever. And that's their right. And that's fine too. And then there's other people like us that do. And then there's these things to walk through because, they're really, like for you, incredibly personal stories. For me, all my projects, except for there's two I'm working on with other people, but I still feel a personal connection to them. But all my major projects that I've worked on up to now, they are so I'm so attached to them in my own internal world, in the things that I wrestle with. I mean, incredibly. I mean, they're like my babies. And so yeah, I just commend you on walking through that fire and trying to work on the judgment, because I too have to work on self-judgment. I think most artists do. I mean, I'm astounded when I hear like a Academy Award winning actress being like, oh, I never look at my work, I can't, and I'm
I
like,
know.
oh my God, even her, like it's that uncomfortable and painful to watch your own brilliant, work. Like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I guess it's part of, you know, it's not easy to expose it and then to risk your own judgment and other people's judgment. And then I could have done this and I could have done that. It's amazing we ever get any work done.
I know.
It's
Yeah.
like,
Well,
so you've got yours out, you've got into the festival, you did it. And
I
to me,
know.
it's huge.
Right. I want to know, like, what did you think when I asked to film you? Because I said, I don't know what it's going to be for. It's going to be some type of art documentary. would you, be interested? And you said yes. I'm curious why. Why did you say yes? Why did you do this? Because I don't know if I would have said yes. Not that it's a bad thing, but I'm just wondering, like, I'm so grateful that you did say yes and that you opened yourself up to me and to whoever sees the film. But why? What were you thinking? What did you feel when I came to you? What was your reality?
Well, I think initially it was I trusted our connection, and I trusted, there were some you and I, when we met, the time we met, a couple of times that we met before you filmed me, I knew that you were an examiner of life, and you also had gone through some pain. And there's just a lot of similarities and things that you and I had walked through. And I thought, well, that to me, that's a good starting point, because I already feel a familiarity. I already feel a safety. I already feel some of those things. So there was that. Then I was just starting to work on Medicine the Wolf. And I was kind of having my own, it's hard to remember some of the time, it's been like 6 years now. It's hard to
I
remember
just
exactly
remember the
what,
construction, if that helps
oh,
bring
that
you back.
horrible
Coo,
construction that
coo,
lasted
coo, coo.
forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that construction was going on in my life. This was right before I got sick too, which I don't need to get into all the details of that, but I got Lyme disease not long after that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was sick with Lyme disease for about 3 or 4 years after that.
Oh my
But
gosh.
anyway, so there's all these different stages, right? You look back at and go, wow, I kind of went through that, and then there's that. But I think too, because I was early on in the film, and I felt kind of cracked open. I think kind of our work can inspire us, and we've been talking about that, to re-examine our own lives and to look at what's important and to see kind of our own darkness and our own things that we're struggling with. And I think I was going through such a time of reevaluation and feeling kind of cracked open, that when you wanted to talk about like the soul and what moves us, and death, and I thought, now those are the things I'm interested in right now. I was looking at an endangered species being kind of potentially started to be wiped out from the planet, and human beings, like this dark quality that we have to do that, and how I was like having all these dreams and my own experiences of like all that darkness, because when I take on stuff, I kind of take it all on. So I was trying to sort through this heartbreak and what it was triggering for me from my own past, into making it a film, into carrying this project forward. And all of a sudden I was feeling this huge responsibility. I bet you can relate to that, to see it through. And I was just holding so many things. And when you were like, hey, I'm doing this film about like the soul and, and what our higher purpose is, and, as artists, I'm like, oh my God, I have to find my way to, because like that's what I wanted to do with my film. I'm actually realizing it in this moment. You were
Wow.
talking about things that I was trying to get to. Kind of makes me want to cry.
Oh my God, that's beautiful. I love how everything is connected in some weird way that we can't even see at the time. I love that.
You just tapped right into it, Lisa. And I was like, these are the things I'm wrestling with, whether I'm realizing it or not. You were asking those questions too. So
Yeah.
when you interviewed me, I felt like I was looking at my diary.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a little bit jarring, but beautiful.
One of
For
the
me.
first reasons why I wanted to make this, okay, was for healing, but really I wanted to create something to reflect back to you guys so you guys could see yourselves. That was
Yeah.
really important to me. I don't know, there's little things that you guys do like through social media or little statements you make or whatever, that when you're laying in a dark bed crying and you can't live life, you think sometimes when you're posting a little comment or a quote or a picture, you're thinking, nobody's really seeing this. My mom is liking it, or my friend, or whatever, but you don't know who's seeing that.
Mm.
And there were so many times I saw, like, all 10 people that I asked were all 10 people that had touched me during the time of my trauma and healing, through those little things, either through your actual work that I'd seen or heard. Some of the music people were music people, or it was through little things that you posted on social media. And I kind of had this weird feeling of like, I want to capture you the way that I imagine you to be, like just from those little postings, and then reflect it back to you so you can see yourself and see what you put out there, because it's good. And I want you guys to feel that.
Thank you, Lisa. And, I was really honored, and also honored to be, I had no idea any of these other artist stories, and was really moved by them, and the humility that the artists brought in about their inner lives and what you pulled out from them was very, it was very moving to me to be brought into, I think, like we've been talking about this today, to be brought into the inner world of being an artist and the struggles and what we struggle with and what we hope for. And it's like, it just nurtures something inside of me. I don't feel alone in the struggle, and all those artists were so unique and beautiful and honest. And
Yeah.
I
How
know
did it feel watching, 6 years later? Did you feel that whole like mortified thing again? Like, I'm exposing myself. This is so crazy. Why did I say that? Or did you feel, I thought you were
it was a
brilliant.
mixed bag. I think it was a mixture of like, I literally felt like I was brought right back into that time of churning. Cause like I said, I was trying to figure this film out. I was brought back into, like, when you're trying to pull in like 50 pieces all at once, and then you're trying to take this whole bag of details and people's lives, and while you're making this film, and like just push it through somehow and make it like beautiful and good and interesting and dynamic and honor people, and it's like all this crazy shit that people don't realize when they're watching a film that you would never want to inundate them with, right?
Right.
So like I felt like you like jumped into that world, and it was like horrifying, because it brought me back to the churning and the what is the word? Scatteredness of it. And then also made me just feel so much compassion for that part of that time, because it was my first film, and the self-exploration that I was going through. And it was right before I got sick, and my beautiful dog, who she's still with me, Sadhna, and that incredible connection that I have with her, and how important that connection was to me then, and even more so now. So it's literally, how I can describe it is our whole conversation today. Like all the pieces of life, like the parts that you judge yourself, the part where you're horrified with your own experience, and then the part where you're just like, wow, I'm just a human being.
Yeah.
And I just felt trusting enough to reveal like my inner journals to Lisa, who I love.
Aw.
And be part of these other artists who are sharing some candid moments of, like things they wouldn't normally maybe share with people, and how much that I felt what is the word I'm looking for? A connection to those artists who I didn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I was
Good.
moved to tears several times by their stories, and how you wove those stories together. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Thank you. Well, if anyone's interested in watching Soul Providers, I put it on my YouTube channel. This is just one version of the film. I just need, someone recommended that I put, because there's 10 subjects, but put like 5 of them in a film. And so I picked 5 people, and Julia's one of the 5 people. And it's just sort of a raw kind of thing put together. But I do think it's worth seeing. I think it's important, especially if you're a creative person, if you're an artist of any kind, or just if you experience life on a deeper level. These people are so amazing, and their words and just their perspectives, I think, if people, after they see it, they tell me, I really liked la la la. They'll tell me like, I resonated with so-and-so, or I really love that quote from Julia, or, they'll say all these different, and I love, that's what I wanted to too, is like, I love the idea of like, you're going to get whatever from whomever, like whichever person resonates with you, wherever you are at that time. There'd be different times that I would resonate more with one of the subjects. And then I'd be like, wow, that person is amazing. And then, a month later, I'm really into the other one. And I'm like, wow, that one, whoa, I didn't even realize, and I mean, I heard it a million times and I still heard it differently. But anyways, I'm sorry, I digress. The point is, it's on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Lisa Murray. And I have it on there. I'm doing it during the social distancing because I want to keep artists inspired and know you're not alone, and that through great pain comes great work. great, meaningful work that can change the world. And so I know this might feel weird right now. I know a lot of us are in the gig economy and we're struggling financially, but know that through this, something, you know, great can come of this. If you want it to, if you put your mind towards that, it could. So, and then also Medicine of the Wolf, Julia's film, is available on Amazon Prime. And I just want to make sure we mention that. And I swear to God, like we're like an hour and 40 minutes into this. I could go like 4,000 hours with you. Like, this is crazy. Because I haven't even talked to you about the Rainbow Murders, and I wanted to. So I don't know. I'm like trying to think, should we come back for that, or should we?
How about if we come back for that? Yeah, I'd love to
Okay.
talk to you about it once it's out. But thanks for bringing it up, and I'm still working on it. And hopefully good things to come in the near future, and lots to share with you about the screenplay and some other things I'm working on.
Oh my God, that's right. Oh my God, we have so much more to unpack.
2020.
So we're having you come back, and by we, I mean me and my car.
we, myself, and I.
Well, me and the stage mom, and then the shy, deep, wise one. No, I don't know. I'll start naming them. No, I won't do that. But
Actually, I think it's great. I love it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so very, very much, because, you know, this podcast enriches me by just thinking and talking like this. I love this. This is like the juice of life for me. And you are like right in there with the deepest nectar of life. And I just love it. So thank you so much for being this way and for talking with me.
Well, one of my favorite poems is called Outrageous Openness by Tasha Silver. So like you and I are getting into the outrageous openness. I love it too. And such a pleasure. Always a pleasure to speak with you, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, thank you. And we'll talk again in the future, near future.
Can't wait.
All right. Thanks, Julia.
All right. Big hugs.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening, guys. I know this was a long one. I really appreciate it. As you can see, certain people I can just talk to forever. I don't know what it is. I just have this flow, man. But all of the links that were mentioned, including Julia's TEDx talk, which is excellent. You have to check it out. And a link to Julia's film Medicine of the Wolf on Amazon Prime, a trailer to her short film Wolf Spirit, her website, because she's an acting coach. All those links will be in the show notes page on IHaveDreamsDammit.com, and it's episode 30, Julia Huffman. Thanks for listening, guys. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.